I know you're tired of hearing about them, but it's something we have to discuss. It's your passwords. Now, passwords are important because they are one of the simplest ways for organizations to authenticate and identify their employees, such as you, for example. The problem is we have so many systems that we operate on and so many different passwords that we generate that we've got quite a few issues when it comes to managing all of our passwords. So in this Give Me 10 lesson from Khonsoo, I'm going to be discussing the why behind the passwords. Why do we have these requirements when it comes to generating passwords? You probably already know why they are important, but I'm here today to talk to you about why those different requirements exist. So the first big concept that we're going to talk about today is entropy. Now, for our purposes right now, I'm just going to say that entropy represents the total number of combinations or possibilities within a system, right? The amount of variance inside of a system. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now that pretty much anything can be broken into, right? So I don't want you to think that even though we are a cybersecurity team that we can get an organization to 100% secure. That will never happen. Our goal is to create enough randomness or variation or enough difficulty on the part of someone or something that's trying to get access to our sensitive systems to make it as difficult as possible for them, to try to sway them and persuade them to go to something else. So when we talk about passwords today, we're talking about how do we increase entropy or the complexity that an attacker would need to go through in order to break into a system. Now, let's begin with a very basic password. Just lowercase alphabetic characters in the English alphabet, bulldog. B-U-L-L-D-O-G. Fairly simple, right? 7 characters, again, all lowercase. Now, currently this 7-character password offers 26 to the 7th, I'll say, pieces of entropy. Now, how did I get that? So you have 7 characters, and within each character position, because we are only using lowercase alphabetic characters, there are only 26 possibilities within each and every single one of those 7 characters. So last time I checked, there are 26 characters in the English alphabet. And remember, we're only using lowercase characters. So lowercase a through lowercase z is what can be expected within each character position. So we have 26 times 26 times 26, doing that 7 times. So 26 raised to the 7th is how we get the amount of variation that exists within this specific password here. Now, on average, that would take about 4 if I were trying to do what's called a brute force attack. Meaning I'm going to go through all variations of 7-character passwords with lowercase alphabetic characters. That's about 26 raised to the 7th is about 8 billion possibilities, give or take. It would take on average an attacker, if we were doing it brute force, about 4 billion possibilities. So you take about half of that to get about the average number of tries that it would take for an attacker to break into this system by just randomly guessing that our password is lowercase bulldog. Now, for us, if we were to do that manually, it would take a very long time. But computerized technology is very good at mundane and repetitive tasks. So if we take the human out of that and just create a massive loop for computerized technology to try to brute force and gain access to something, that 7-character password is going to be broken in no time. So what's difficult for us or time consuming for us is not time consuming for current technology. Now, I ask you, what would you do to improve the amount of variation or security within this simple password? Some of you have already guessed it. Well, let's go ahead and let's add uppercase characters. So if we take our lowercase bulldog and the B and the G, we transform them to uppercase characters. Now we have increased the amount of entropy within our particular password. So we originally had 26 possibilities within each character position. And now, because we are also adding uppercase characters in the English alphabet, we're increasing it by another 26. So again, 26 possibilities, lowercase a through Z, 26 possibilities from uppercase A to uppercase Z. If my math is correct, that's 52. Now we still got the same number of positions, which are 7, but the amount of variation within each character has doubled. So rather than 26 raised to the 7th, now our 7-character password that allows for lowercase and uppercase alphabetic characters has increased from 26 to the 7th to 52 to the 7th. Pretty cool. Now that has increased the number of possibilities from about 8 billion to a little over a trillion variations within that. So how do we add more entropy? Well, maybe we throw in some numbers. Maybe we throw in some special character sets. So if we do that, that's 26 for the lowercase letters, 26 for the uppercase letters, 10 for numbers 0 through 9, and let's just say our character set of special characters, there are 10 of them listed out here. So if we add up all of these, we get 72 possibilities per character space. So now our bulldog password with an uppercase B and an uppercase G, if we change that B to maybe an ampersand, and we change the O to a 0, now we have increased the amount of variation a pretty good bit, 72 to the 7th, which is about 10 trillion variations. Again, for us, it would be very difficult to break that, but for a computer, it's going to take no time. Now, do you remember in math classes what happens when you raise a number? And we're going to stick with positive integers here. When you raise a number by an exponent, how large that result can quickly become. Well, in our case, in order to raise the amount of entropy by another exponent, you remember that's 7, we have to increase the number of character positions. Bottom line, if we really want to increase the entropy or the amount of variation in our passwords, it's not in the changing of uppercase and lowercase and numbers and adding special characters. It's actually by adding character positions. That's how we change the exponent. Now, is this always true? There are caveats to what I'm telling you here. Number 1, the calculations above assume randomness in our password creation, and actually entropy actually means a lack of predictability. Now, we started with bulldog. It's easy for us to remember, but it's also super easy to guess, especially if an attacker knows something about us. Maybe we went to a school, high school, middle school, college, whose mascot might be a bulldog. If that's one of the things that's true about you, it would make it more easy for someone to guess what your particular password is. They have other information available. Number 2, attackers realize, they're not stupid, attackers realize that we want to make our passwords easy enough for us to remember, to meet the minimum requirements of the system that we're working on, but to make it as easy as possible for us to remember. So they know what we like to do when we have to change our passwords. For example, when I guarantee you that some of you watching this don't admit it, but I guarantee you that some of you who are watching this, anytime you need to add a number to your password, more often than not it's at the end, and more often than not it starts with the number 1. And now 30, 60, 90 days later, when you need to change that, what do? Well, the new password can't be the previous password. And you think you've already created a good enough one, let's say with Bulldog 1. What do? Most of us will increment that 1 to a 2. Next time you need to change it, 2 becomes 3, 3 to 4. What happens when it gets to 9? Well, you just rotate it, go back to 0. Or maybe you go to 10. Attackers know this. It makes it easy for us to remember, and it meets the minimal requirements of the systems that we're working on. But attackers really do know this. One of the other caveats, our third caveat here, is that we tend to use passwords that we think are really good across multiple systems. And when we do that, attackers look for the weakest link in the chain. So if you come up with what you consider to be a very strong password, but you use that password across 5, 10, 20 different systems, let's say some organizational systems and then some personal systems, say your personal email. Well, it only takes one of those systems to be attacked, your particular password to be figured out there, and then the attacker or attacker group ends up using that password across all other systems that they think you might use. In addition to that, we tend to use the same user IDs. And oftentimes, unfortunately, our user IDs end up being our email addresses. So if I know your email address and I know your password that you used on system for company XYZ, I'm going to go and try it on your Yahoo account or your Gmail account or your company BCD. I wonder, is there a way for us to protect ourselves even when our passwords are figured out by attacker groups, or they are stolen or sold in the black market? And what if there was a way I didn't have to create or remember the passwords that are associated with me? Maybe that's a good topic for another lesson. Cheers.